I do.
Yeah, I look great.
Thank you.
He's good.
Okay, Peg, we're type strong.
Okay, thank you. Today is September the 5th, 2006. We're here at the Gaelic American Club in Fairfield. We're going to do an interview with Mary O'Shea. With me today are Kevin Collins, who is doing the filming, and Sally O'Hara, who is doing the note-taking, and I'm Peg O'Leary. Hello, Mary, how are you?
Hello, Peg. I'm good, thank you.
That's good. Thank you so much for coming and sitting down with us.
You're welcome.
And being a part of our video history.
Thank you.
I'm going to start off with simple. I'm going to ask you please to give me your full name.
Okay. Okay. It's Mary Ellen O'Sullivan Murray-O'Shea.
Okay, thank you. And how was the name Mary chosen? I mean, how was your first name chosen?
It was from my aunt. We were all called after our parents, brothers and sisters.
Okay.
And so that was mine. I had an Aunt Mary called after her.
All right. And was that your mother or your father's?
That was my father's side.
Your father's side of the
Yeah.
family, okay. And what part of Ireland are you from?
I'm from West Cork. I was born in a place called Foxhall in the town of Rosscarbery, near Skibbereen, West Cork.
Oh, beautiful area there.
It is.
Yes. Were you near the sea?
Yes, 4 miles.
Yeah, lovely, lovely area.
Yeah.
And were you born at home or were you born in a hospital?
Born at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many brothers and sisters?
6 brothers and a sister.
And a sister. Okay.
Yeah.
And did your parents, were they from that area? Did your mother and your father both from?
They were, yes, local. They were probably about 4 miles each from where we grew up, in opposite directions.
All right. Okay. And your mother's maiden name?
She was Downey.
Downey.
Yeah.
All right. And your father, and your father's family and your mother's family also, it was the same area that they had all come from?
Yeah, West Cork.
All
yeah.
West Cork people.
Yeah, close by where they settled.
Yes. All right. And can you tell me the names of your siblings and where they are now?
Yeah, my brother Dennis was the eldest. He's deceased. My brother Dan was the next, and he's deceased. And my sister Nora was the next, and she's deceased. All the 3 of my brothers and sisters are deceased. And then my brother Con was next, Cornelius.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was me, and then my brother Jimmy, my brother Eugene, and my brother Michael. And that was all of us.
Okay. And how many came to the States?
Just me.
Just you?
Yeah.
So all the rest stayed back in Ireland?
Yeah.
Did they stay in the same area?
Yes, they did actually. Yeah, they're all in County Cork, in different parts of County Cork. Yeah.
And your family home, was it a farm or was
It was a farm.
Was a farm.
Yeah.
Okay. And did anyone stay on that farm?
My brother Con did, and eventually he turned the land into dry cattle, grazing cattle, and then he started a piggery. You know, he raised pigs and, that.
Yeah.
Till he retired and moved down closer to Clonakilty in Cork also.
And is that family farm still in the family?
No,
No.
it isn't, no. And the young man who bought it gave up the raising the pigs, and now he's working at a local creamery. So he's not doing it either.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't profitable anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, well, Ireland has changed so much.
Yeah.
Since those
It
days.
has.
And how big of a farm was it?
It was 100 acres of land.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big farm.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but my brothers were a great help to my dad, And in the early years, my dad took a side job at a local flax mill. We used to grow flax, actually. It was, I don't know if you know anything about it.
Tell me a little bit about that.
What linen was made out of.
Yes.
And we used to grow it, and it was very time consuming because you couldn't cut it. You had to actually pull it out of the ground, So you had huge fields of flax, and you would have, they called it a mehel of men, like a mehel, a million, but it was maybe like 20 or 30 men from all the townlands would come, and one day they would all start at the end and pull it into sheaves and bunches.
How big would it be? How was it? 6 inches tall or?
It was probably about 18 inches tall, very tall, yeah. So they would put it in sheaves, and another group would come along and bind it. And then it's a very long process. You'd have to take it to, we had ponds, big ponds of water, huge ponds that were cut out for that purpose alone. And you would put it in the pond, one sheaf facing this way, one sheaf facing this way, and then you would have to watch it very closely, because if the weather was very soft and warm and rainy, it would come to its sort of when you have to take it out. And you had to take it out when it was ripe enough, and you spread it on the ground. It was really a long process. You had to leave it there till it dried. When it dried, it became very brittle. So you had again to come on now with all your, mostly my brothers did it then, would gather it up into sheaves again, bind it, and they would put it in a big reek until it was ready to be taken to the mill. And in the mill, they scotched it. They separated the flax, which made the linen, and it was sent up to Northern Ireland. And then the chaff and the tow was just used to make ropes and things like that.
So nothing was wasted on it?
Nothing was wasted, and it was a great way of making a little money, like on side, at the farm. Yeah. But it was a very lengthy process to do.
How long would that take from the time they pulled it till it was shipped
It
off?
depended on the weather. Like I said, if the weather was very soft and you could get it, and then you got nice dry weather when it was spread out on the field to be able to pick it up again, it had to be totally dry to pick it up.
So you needed to have some sunshine in there.
Yes, you did.
Dry.
Yes, you
did.
did.
What would happen if you had a really bad rainy season?
You'd have to leave it there, and then it was very difficult to pick it up because the grass started to grow up between it.
Wow.
So it was a profitable thing. Not that profitable, but it helped out.
Oh, sure.
No?
Yeah. And with the flax, did it have flowers? Did it flower at all?
No.
No, it never
No
did.
flowers, no.
I don't
It had little beads on top, but no flowers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds, wow.
So it was,
So
yeah.
you would do like acres of that?
Yes,
kind of?
acres, yeah, acres of that.
And how hard
Yeah.
was that to pull up? Did it have deep roots?
Wasn't that difficult. They sort of pulled it one way and then the other way, and just put it in sheaves.
But it was bad on the back, though, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they were all strong farmers.
Oh, sure. I bet they were. Did they also cut their own turf?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
And you had your own bog?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. We cut it from somebody else's bog. They would let you cut the turf, and then they'd charge you for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so your family would go out and do the same kind of a thing, cut the
Yep.
turf, and that
Cut the
would be,
turf, and then all of us would help to stook it up so it would dry. Then when it was dry, we'd bring it home to a reek in the garden way down. Yeah. So everything was like sort of homemade or home done. Or we had our own wheat and barley, and we had oats and everything, and our own wheat, and we'd take it to the mill to be ground and for our bread making, and so on. So we had everything: vegetables, potatoes, everything.
very self-sustained.
Very self-sustained, yeah.
And now, did those, like, you're harvesting flax, and I imagine you did the wheat and
the oats and the barley, yeah.
How about hay? Did you do hay?
Hay, yeah.
So did those
We
have
did hay.
a season so that you didn't try to do them all in 1 month or something like that, or was it?
They were all probably close together because it had to be done in the summertime, There was, when it came to threshing the corn and that, and it was a big day. Like, again, all the men would come, and they would have a day threshing. They would feed it into the thresher, and it would separate the straw from the grain.
Uh-huh.
And then they would save all the grain, make big, we used to call it a shigog. It was a big thing, a self-made thing with ropes all around, and it was waterproof by the time they finished, so you would leave that in until you needed to use it. Then you opened it up and, used it.
Yeah. Okay. And now, what would what would the women be doing? What would your mother be doing when this was going? Would she actually be out in the field working this, or would she be doing?
Very rarely. She would be cooking for all the men.
Okay.
She'd be cooking, and then they always and we went with her to bring the tea over. We called it bringing the tea to the men in the field. They'd make big apple pies or big rhubarb pies. They were like way round, like about 18 inches round or so. They had these big pans, and they would take the apple cakes out, and
And you just
whatever.
physically carry them out?
Physically carried it, yeah,
Out to
with the
field?
help of the other children and
Yes.
so on,
And set it up out on the field?
and set it out up on the field for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was.
And was it a full meal, or was it more cakes?
It was just like cake, like apple cake or rhubarb cake or something, or raisin bread, like big cakes of raisin bread also.
Yeah.
you know.
And
So
would that be just once during the time that they were doing this work, or would it?
it would be only once that day
Yeah.
that they would bring that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so your family did that, and friends came to help, or other farmers, and I imagine you
And
went and helped the other farmers.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a great upbringing we had, you know. It was fantastic.
And did you have
Yeah.
animals besides?
We had everything. We had everything. We had our own chickens and ducks and geese and everything. We had everything. We were just so self-sufficient.
Yeah.
We had to. There was a local shop, and he came once a week with what we called a lorry with a truck, and he had like things like tea and jam, but we had our own butter and milk and everything, you know. So he would bring like the staples once a week. Collins's. Collins's.
Can't seem to get away from the Collins.
Yeah, Michael Collins. Yeah. So.
And how far then were you from a town?
We were 4 miles from Rosscarbery, and we were 8 miles from the bigger town, Clonakilty, and then we were 40 miles from Cork City. So that's where we were.
So, but the convenience of having somebody with a lorry come out was to save you having to.
Oh yeah,
go into
yeah.
town.
Because the only way when I was growing up, the only way we had to go to get anything was with the pony and cart, or the horse and cart, or my father would use a saddle horse if he had to go quickly someplace. And later on in years, he got a bicycle, but there were no bicycles when we were young. You know, we went to mass we had what we called a horse and trap. It was like a round trap, and we'd all crowd into it as much as we could. The older boys would probably walk or do something like that if we couldn't all fit, you know. And then we used to pick up the publican, Julia Peggy. She had a local pub, so we had to take her too. She was a very big lady. She had one of those hooded black cloaks that you see in the pictures now.
Yeah.
But she was a great lady, you know. She'd always give us a few pence for sweets.
And was she a local neighbor?
She was about 2 miles in the village. And so she would give us like 2 pence, and then we'd get a whole bag of hard sweets or candy, we call it now, for a happening. They were such different times.
Oh, yes.
You know?
Yeah,
Oh, my goodness,
imagine?
yeah.
And how far then did you go to get to church?
To church was 3.5 miles.
Oh, that wasn't too
Carrick
bad.
Fada, yeah. It was called the Long Rock, Irish Carrick Fada for that. Yeah, it was underneath a big rock. But that was our local church. Yeah.
And did the church obviously played a big part in the life of the community?
Oh, a big part. Yeah, a very big part. Yeah. It was, the priests and the nuns. Well, the nuns were in Rosscarbery. That was 4 miles away. And they had a convent. They taught school there. My sister went. I didn't go. My sister did. And but the local church, like I said, was closer. And that's where we used to go to church every Sunday, you know. Yeah.
If you were standing in the doorway of your house and looking outside, describe to me what I'd be looking at. What
you would be looking at the Atlantic Ocean, but you wouldn't see it, not from where we were. You'd have to leave the house and go up the hill, and then from the top of the hill you could see the Atlantic Ocean down there. We used to go up and watch the lighthouse flashing, you know, the Galley Head it was called. We'd go see the Galley Head every now and then and dream about all our relatives in America, that they all went that way, you know.
Were you ever able to see the ships go by from where?
We did occasionally, convoys, yeah. We'd see a convoy of ships sometimes.
And what more directly would you see if you were standing looking out? What would be the...
If looking out our front door, you would see the road coming into our house, and then the Boreen, coming up the Boreen, and the house to the left was close down the road. And you wouldn't actually see, unless you went outside, you wouldn't see the other houses. You know, we're like maybe a mile away or a mile away. Or then through the field there was our local neighbour, which a lot of us were born with, because the midwife was four miles away, all uphill, up from Rosscarbery. So she had to come up there with her bicycle, or if my dad had the pony and trap, to go get her. So half of us were born with our neighbour.
She would come over
yeah.
and help your mother?
Ellie, yeah. and she herself had 16 children. My mother delivered many of hers as well. Yeah. And then after hers were born, we always laugh about this because her husband would come over and he'd say to my mom, "Well, Hannah, the storm is over for this time." Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful.
yeah,
Do you
but
remember?
we never knew anything like we really never, when we were younger, knew anything about sex or anything, and we never knew. Only that my mom got a headache and she would go upstairs, and then the next thing, before you knew it, the baby was crying, even before the midwife came. But we never gave any thought about it, like until we were older, and my sister probably told me, where babies came from, and you know.
Do you remember any of your siblings being born? Were you
I remember
conscious of it?
my brother Mickey. I remember that, and that was the only one that I remember. Yeah.
So you got to see him?
Got to see him. Yeah. Yeah.
So otherwise they just kind of appeared and there they were, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had 8 living, and 2, one died at childbirth, and 1 lived for a month. So they actually bore 10 children, my mom and dad. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a great, you really didn't think about it when you were growing up until you look back on it now and just think how hard they worked, and, to bring us all up. And what a great upbringing we had. We had no toys, When my Carol's daughter, Nora, interviewed me for one of her projects for school, and the fact that we had no toys, she called her mother up at work. She says, "Mommy, would you believe when Nana was growing up, she had no toys?" Carrie said she was almost crying. But we had pencils and paper, and we made our own drawings. And, at a young age, we learned to use the sewing machine and patch sheets. When the sheets were worn out, we'd patch them, and make little pinafores for going to school. We had little aprons that we wore over our heavy clothes, and so we were taught to sew at a very early age, and anything that we could do. We had a great, great upbringing.
I bet you had fun playing together.
We had great fun.
Yeah.
We had great fun. We had no toys, but we had, all our toys were moving around the yard. We had all kinds of animals and ducks and geese, and, and our shop, actually, we would save every can, every cocoa can, every tea box, anything that we could save, and we'd make this big thing out in the wall, and we'd have a shop. So the person that was behind the shop was, of course, the one that was very proper. "Oh, Mrs. Jones, what would you like today?" And so we'd say, "Well, I'll have a pound of tea," Oh, that's how we learned to play and to sort of make money, make change and what have you, with little paper.
You would?
Yeah. Yeah.
And did your dad take cattle and things and go to the market?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Did you ever get
Went
to
to
go
the
and do that?
fair.
Did you have the fairs?
No, well, later years, but not when we were young. Not when we were young. We didn't go to the fair.
Wow.
So anyway, but
What was your mom's maiden name?
Downey.
Downey.
Downey, yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were growing up, you all lived in your house. Did you have anybody else? Did any aunts or uncles or grandparents or anything live with you?
No.
You were just the
Well,
family.
just us, yeah.
And the house was in your father's family, or your mother's family?
No,
Or was it a new
actually,
house?
they bought the house when they got married. They bought the house
Okay.
and renovated over the years, because it was a smaller house when they bought it. So little by little they added on to it and so on.
What type of a house was it?
It was downstairs, upstairs, 3-bedroom house, and a parlor and a hallway and a huge kitchen, big open fireplace. So everything was cooked in the open fire with very large pots. Everything was sort of on a big scale because of food and everything. But then by the time the younger ones grew up, my brother Dennis had, he had left, and he went to Tipperary because he was going to be a priest, but he didn't actually ever finish there. So anyway.
So did you learn how to cook in the fireplace too? Did you
Oh
learn
yeah, yeah. We all did. We all did our share of everything. We all worked outside. We got up early in the morning, and in the frost we were outside, and we had no gloves either. And we would chop up some turnips and stuff for the animals with this big machine, this pulper. We just had to turn it and chop up the stuff, and maybe milk a couple of cows when we got older before we went to school. And then we'd walk 2.5 miles across the fields to school. We'd take a bottle of tea or a bottle of cocoa and some bread and butter, and then we'd have our dinner when we came home. So that's how it was.
And the school that you went to, who was it run by the church, or was it a
It was
traditional school?
it was a parish, I guess, like a parish school. Yeah.
Run by nuns? Were the teachers?
No,
No.
teachers. Yeah,
Teachers, so-
teachers. They had to come up from Rosscarbery too. Mrs. Minnis used to come on her bicycle up 4 miles in the morning uphill. It was easier for her going home.
Home, yeah.
Yeah, she used to fall asleep a lot. She was a little lady, and I remember when we were infants, you know, she'd be dozing, and we'd all be up in her face, Mrs. Minnis, ma'am, Mrs. Minnis, ma'am.
If you'd been a teenager, you probably would have been glad to let her sleep, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And what was the school like? What type
It was a one-room schoolhouse with the old desks with the inkwell and the pen and the ink, and we had pencils and that.